Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome to a Duet Night Abyss video. Welcome to a Tabathy early guide. There's been quite a lot of talk about supports in this game because people are starting to reach the higher difficulty content where it could be quite important what kind of characters you run as your off-fielders or your, I guess, combat partners in this game, so that you can get the most out of your main character. And when it comes to supports, there's a couple of names that are being dropped, right? We have main character, which gives you some buffs, I believe, in their ultimate. You've got Truffle, or that's not Truffle. You've got Truffle, who's got a bit of healing, who's also got the Resolve boost, so specifically really good for Psyche. You have got yourself some Daphne, who is a healer as well, but who can also give you crit rate through her passive. And then, generally speaking, characters like, for example, Margie could be considered a support as well because she has two passives that increase your attack. Now, there's a lot of information going around, and I think a lot of testing that is being done, but also that still needs to be done because there's a lot of discussion about which supports are best and which, maybe aren't that good. I'm not going to give you a definitive answer, but I do want to talk about specifically Tabathy today and why I think she could be a pretty good universal support. And why she might be a bit better than others in specific scenarios. But I'm not going to say that I've done all the calculations and tell you that this is a must-have support. I just kind of want to show you what she does, and you can do with it as you would like. So let's fly straight into it. Tabathy has... I guess maybe I should mention, I'm going to be going over this as a support character. So all the other videos I've done so far are, that character is the main damage dealer and you're doing your stuff with them. My philosophy with this character, and I think your philosophy should be with this character, is that she will be a combat partner, not a character that you use. So, yeah. Why is she so good? So basically, her kit consists of a couple of buffs. Both are kind of the same thing, but I'm not entirely sure how they stack. If you use, and I'm going to start here actually, you can use your ultimate to summon 9 tentacles around you. Now, it's going to do damage, but this thing itself isn't going to buff. And if you use it, it doesn't have that large of a radius. I mean, I guess it does, but for an ultimate, you can just slap on Rebecca, put a jellyfish down, and then put two others down, and then you'll also have a bunch of range. But yeah, you can basically put this down, and whenever this is down, when you use your skill, not only do you get the buff, which I will talk about in a second, which is why she's so important, but you can also make those tentacles strike down. So we're gonna summon tentacles again, and then we can use our skill to make him strike down. Now, the scaling on this is not ideal. It's not that good. It's a 75% damage boost. Let me see, a 75% damage boost. And I'm assuming, but I'm not entirely sure, that damage boost is on top of the summon damage. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I tested it in content, and okay, I don't have that much hydro attack or skill damage, but it doesn't do all that much damage. Now, you could obviously try to build for her to do some more damage, because I'll show you later on, you could be building some attack, and that attack stat can actually be useful, so you could go for it, but the main thing is not to be using... Oh, I don't have any sanity regen. Is not to be using your E to do damage, but to buff. And I say that as if you are controlling her, but obviously it's more so the AI that is going to have to do it. What does the skill do? The skill basically, obviously it does the damage, but it also gives you a skill damage boost for teammates. Right, so it says it right here, grant self and allies boost to skill damage. Considering the fact that most characters in the game currently do a lot of skill damage, this is just amazing, because whenever your AI partner uses this, you are going to get extra skill damage for a while. Now, I'll get into the stats later, but very, very importantly, this buff doesn't scale off of anything. So, like, I cannot click on this to make it say, like, skill damage boost or attack percent, whatever. It doesn't scale. It only goes higher the higher you upgrade the ability. So you want to get this as high as possible, but the one stat that you absolutely kind of need on her is a skill duration, because the buff in itself doesn't last all too long. I believe without anything on, it only lasts like 6 seconds. But I basically have as much skill duration as possible to make it go up, and I'm going to show you specifically. Sorry, excuse me. I'm going to show you specifically that you can make this number go up. So currently it's at 10.4 seconds with the skill duration that I have. But if this node right here with the 6%, if I upgrade that, this number is going to go higher. So again, we've got ourselves this, unlock, we get that, and now we're going to go up to 1088. It's not a huge increase, but if you stack a bunch of skill duration together, it will add up. Again, I think it was at 6 seconds without any of the extras that I have, and we're already nearly at 11 seconds. The reason why you want this buff to be as high as possible is because you don't have control over, or sorry, as long as possible. It's because you don't have control over what your AI partner does. Like sometimes your AI partner will just fucking stand there and do nothing and just stare at you. You know, there might be a moment where they barely have enough to summon the buff and the ultimate, and then they might summon the ultimate for some reason, which means that you're not getting the buff. Like I've heard a lot of people complain about this because you just don't have control over the consistency over when you are buffing. So to try to negate this, we are going to get our skill duration as high as we possibly can. And I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do that in just a second. So yeah, that's your buff. The ultimate is the damage. Obviously, you could increase this. If you are planning to use her as a support, I would. For me, it's just that I have been spending my resources elsewhere, and I'm not really up to date fully on her yet. But I would get it later on, because as I'll show you in a second, attack can actually be quite useful. Her passive is kind of like just like damage for yourself, but again, you are using her as a combat partner, or at least in this scenario, I'm using her as a combat partner, so the damage isn't the most important part. You basically get crit chance when summoning tentacles with this passive, and then using a ranged weapon to deal a crit is going to increase the damage because you'll get more tentacles near the target. It's nice, you know, you get a bunch of extra damage going, but again, we're not really focused on damage. And then the last passive here is quite important. It increases skill damage for self and allies. It's only 8%, but it is an 8% that is fixed. So this, 36% damage boost that we're getting is tied to her using the ability. This thing is just permanent. The reason this specifically is so good is because all of the other, or most of the other characters have their specific passive around increasing attack. So attack for Lumino characters, attack for Lumino characters, attack for Anemo allies, attack for Hydro allies, and then attack for Self and allies, and attack for, I guess, both. Just in general, Margie can just support whatever element, doesn't really matter. But yeah, most of these are attack, which is nice. You need attack to do damage because your skills do actually increase off of attack percent. But in the philosophy of getting to a late game stage where you have a bunch of buffs going on, you don't want to stack all of the same buff. Like if you could choose between getting attack, or attack and skill damage, it's better to just kind of get attack and skill damage and split it up that way. So in that sense, I feel like this is going to be a really good character because you can have her buffs specifically for your skill, and then you can have another character that increases attack with their buff. Obviously, don't use Tabathy on a character that mostly relies on weapon damage. As far as I can tell, most characters here do rely on skills, but if ever there comes, if ever there's a character that is really good with their weapon, or that doesn't really scale off of skill damage, then Tabathy isn't going to be as useful. Yeah, those are basically the skills. You want to be looking for skill duration, if possible. Now, there's a couple of weapons that are good on her, and then the first one I'm going to show you, which I think is just her best in slot, gives you trigger probability. But also, that's why, oh my god, I'm so stupid. Yeah, okay. So it gives you trigger probability, 75%, and when a Hydro character triggers a bonus effect with this weapon, other allies gain 33% attack. That's why trigger probability was important, and I just completely forgot about that. This weapon basically gives you just a buff whenever you do damage with the effect of the weapon. So whenever your Tabathy is just smacking away, she triggers a bonus effect, then you are going to get 33% attack for 6 seconds. The higher your trigger probability, the more likely this thing is to hit. By the way, trigger probability basically means that when you hit an enemy, there's a chance to apply your element on that enemy. The higher trigger probability, the higher likely you are, the higher likelihood there is to get that done. So yeah, for melee weapons, that is actually probably her best because it just gives you the attack percent increase. But in the philosophy of trying to get some skill duration going, which is also nice to have, there's a couple of options. So the Screamshot is 18%, but you also have something like the Arclight Apocalypses, which gives you skill durations, or sorry, skill duration, but it also gives you a specific extra stat when you land a crit. So it's either 10% attack, 10% defense, or 75 or 7.5% skill damage, or 10% skill duration. So a bunch of buffs that you can get to you and your other allies, or specifically to other allies. So this is probably her best in slot for ranged, and this is probably her best in slot for melee. I say probably because I don't feel like I have the knowledge to give you the definitive answer, but yeah, from what I know about her, I think that's probably the best way to go. So yeah, that's that. Let's look at demon wedges, because this is very different compared to other characters, as in you basically want to go look for things that give you supportive capabilities towards other characters. So very quickly, if you are... Okay, let me actually go back to demon wedges. I don't know why I went to weapons. If you run this thing right here, Bahamut's Frosty Torrent, it gives you skill damage, which is okay to have, and it also gives you an attack increase based on your own attack. So depending on whether you use this or not, I believe it's a pretty good piece on her, because the skill damage is nice to have. But obviously, you want to just focus on being able to boost the damage of your other teammates as much as possible. And this is going to help you do that. But if you are running this, you need to get as high a Hydro attack as possible, or attack. But I mean, it scales into Hydro attack, because it basically means that if you have higher attack on this character, then a part of that is going to be higher on other characters. If you're not running this, then running any attack percent is not that useful. But as far as I can tell right now, I think it's probably worth running a bit of that where possible. Let me also quickly check my other blazes. So, because, yeah, okay. So I'm also thinking of either running Typhon's Prime here, the uplift, or you could run the... do I not have it? Yeah, okay. I guess I don't have it. I thought I farmed for it yesterday. But what you could also run is Typhon's Prime Serenity. Serenity basically gives your team, even if you're using this as an off-fielder, gives your team extra sanity generation. So if you feel like you are having issues on your main character with sanity generation, then you could run Serenity on her. If you don't feel like that is an issue, then it's probably best to just run Uplift, because this gives you a damage increase. I haven't leveled it up because I can't really fit it in here just yet, but obviously upgrading this up is quite necessary. I would definitely be running one of these, either this one, the Uplift, or the Serenity one, because you want to give your main character either extra attack or extra sanity generation. Again, I'm running some sanity mods here. What you could also do is running some attack mods just to make sure that this thing scales higher. But the reason you want to scale some sanity mods in there is because, again, you have no control over what your AI companion does. So making sure that they have as much sanity as possible so that their AI somehow thinks to be using their skill as often as possible is the best way to go. What you could also be running is, for example, this one right here, is good in every sense, because I'm getting Hydro attack, I'm getting skill damage, which is nice, but also I'm getting skill duration, so making this stack up as high as possible. And honestly, I think it might actually be worth running some lower tier mods that give you some skill duration as well, although I don't really see one immediately just yet. But yeah, you basically want to just chase down as much skill duration as possible and as much attack as possible, but only if you are running this one right here, because it's going to increase the rest of your party's attack in that sense. That's basically it for Demon Wedges, and that's also basically it for the character. She's a good off-field buffer because she gives you skill damage, and you can kind of just use her as a sponge for passives, right? You can just put weapons on her that increase the damage, or that will increase the damage of the rest of your team, like for example this one right here, or you know, put every single demon wedge on this character that could give you a buff to the rest of the team. Yeah, with that being said, I think that's pretty much everything that we need to cover. If you have any questions or anything you would like to let me know, make sure to do so in the comments below, and I thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.